Was it something you thought of, gosh, we do this, and think about the lives that we can impact and the people that we can inspire and influence to do their thing, to find their way.
People often forget that for a 125-pound man that sits strapped into a wheelchair for 16 to 18 hours a day, the rigors of an Ironman are incredibly challenging on his body. When you're in the throes of an Ironman for 14 or 15 hours of racing for us, there's moments where you can't even fathom what the finish is. And when you get to the finish, you realize that it was all those moments that you struggled through that really made it all worth it. What do our struggles and our triumphs represent to you? What can you take from this experience? We want them to come away with action in their own lives.
Yeah, everybody, cannot relate to doing an Ironman, but everybody can relate to perseverance and the tenacity and overcoming obstacles.
Welcome back to another episode of the Athletics of Business Podcast. I am your host and CEO of the Molitor Group, Ed Molitor. Now, if you are looking for something to give you that little bit of edge, something that can help you or your team members push a little bit farther outside that comfort zone, whether it be physically, mentally, or emotionally, because we all know as humans, we truly don't know what we are capable of in any of those areas. Well, I'm going to tell you what, today's podcast is just the episode for you. I am beyond honored to be joined by Brent and Kyle Pease. They are brothers. They are co-founders of the Kyle Pease Foundation, and they're the fastest push assist duo to complete the Ironman World Championships in Kona, Hawaii. Now, Kyle was born with cerebral palsy, and he relies on Brent to be his legs during the races together. They completed over 150 endurance events. Their mission is to champion inclusion in sports and the workforce through storytelling, grit, and real impact. And I promise you, if you listen to this episode, and I mean, if you listen and hang on every word that they say and watch whatever video clips that we put out there, go to our YouTube channel, The Athletics of Business, and watch the complete video and watch the way they look at each other, watch the way they acknowledge each other when the other one is speaking, and they share the stories and their role in the story that they're telling. I mean, think about this. Boston Marathon, April 2025. They finished second place as a duo team in 3 hours and 1 minute. Ironman, world record in 2024 in Kona, fastest push assist finish in that race. They have raised over $1 million for inclusive employment program through the Kona campaign alone. They're published authors. Grab the book, Beyond the Finish. We'll have the link for that in our show notes. And I'm going to tell you what, if you're looking for speakers, grab these guys. They are absolutely amazing. They've spoken for such companies as Google, Under Armour, Northwestern Mutual, 29029 Everest, and so many more. I can go on and on. Now, listen, I'm going to get out of the way here. I'm going to let you listen to this podcast episode. But do me a favor. Do your friends a favor. Do your team members a favor. Share this episode, because there is so much here. You know that I come from a place of authenticity, a place of being real. Folks, it doesn't get much better than Brent and Kyle Pease. Kyle and Brent, thank you so much for joining us today on the Athletics of Business Podcast. There could not be a better way to start a day than recording a podcast episode with the two of you, so we can talk about all the amazing work that you have done, the incredible journey that you've been on together. And I'm really looking forward to sharing this story with everybody. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So let's just jump right in. Tell us how this all got started. I mean, it's just beyond the inspiration, right? And beyond the incredible story to tell, there's a reality to it that this is not easy. Like how this came about and the epiphany you had, Kyle and Brent, to do this stuff together. Just take us through how all this all came to fruition.
Yeah, so we grew up a real big sports family, so sports was in our DNA. But after Brett graduated from college, he got involved in indoor sports, and he invited the whole family to attend his first Ironman in Louisville, Kentucky in 2010. And I went up there and I would get amazed at what transpired during that day, and to see Brett and all the other competitors fight their way to the finish line was something that I do every day with my cerebral palsy. And I wasn't tall, so I asked Brent at the end of the day, could people in wheelchairs do Ironman? And he said yes. So that's kind of where we are now. I wouldn't have it any other way, and it's a pleasure to be on this journey with Brent.
It's a great story. And I gotta think as you're sitting there that day waiting for your brother to cross the finish line and seeing all the athletes and seeing the highs and lows of it. As that idea was running through your head, Kyle, it had to become pretty exciting when Brent said yes to you and all the possibilities that that opened up for all of you guys.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. The highs and lows of living with a disability are pretty paramount, and I go through them every day, the highs and the lows, and to feel, the endorphins of a competition is something that I love. It's something that every storyline that we start together, it's an honor and a privilege to fight for inclusion for people that we represent with the Kyle Peace Foundation, and what we do together as brothers is an honor.
And I love the words you use, and I love the idea that everybody has something, right? Everybody has a strength, everyone has an ability, everybody can contribute, and it's how you go about defining that. So as Brenton, you started this journey, what was it like? What was the role that you played? Was it firing Brent up? Was it kind of the creative thinking, like here's what we're gonna do, here's how we're gonna do it? How did this all play out for you guys?
I think I'm a type of person that I rise to the occasion. I'm not the best planner, but I could tell you that I'm not the best logistical person either. In fact, I hate logistics because my life is so logistically planned with my caregivers and all that. But I think I rise to the occasion, and every race is a little bit different, whether it's coaching Brett or giving him words of affirmation or even yelling at him. I guess whatever is working during that particular race or event, that's what I focus on. And the ultimate goal is to love him and to help us get to the finish line.
Get to the finish line, and that's so huge. And speaking of the finish line, Brent, I have to think when you crossed that finish line in Louisville, to see your brother there and to have him ask you that question, did it A, catch you off guard, or B, or both, just move you to this point of there is even more possible than what I have done on my own? There's even more possible together.
It caught me off guard. It was not, I mean, I wanted my family there. The whole family came. It had been this very big transformation for me, moving into that lifestyle of fitness, of athleticism. And so it definitely caught me off guard. And even my initial reaction, I think, was like, okay, well, who can we get to do this with us? Like, I'll do the swim and somebody else could do the bike. And it wasn't even like, and the more we talked about it, the more we realized, how big of a thing this could be just between us. All the stuff Kyle just shared was how it really came together. So it's created a wonderful experience and opportunity for both of us together, just through one small experience and one simple question.
Sports have played such an integral part of your role growing up, right? As children, getting ready for the podcast, I went back and I watched a video from chapter 4, the family
Mhm.
chapter.
Yeah.
It's just so cool. And to see Kyle, to see you guys out there playing baseball, right? And to see the things that your mom and dad did and to connect through sports and to see how close the three of you were, your brothers and as brothers and the different things that you did. That all of a sudden now you're doing this together. Does that take the relationship to a whole other level? I mean, there's a lot of time you guys have together alone, right? Like this is something different. It's not like you're sitting watching TV, watching baseball on TV. I mean, you guys are out there doing it, and there's the highs and lows and everything in between.
Well, Kyle and I have always been close. The way I always think about it is that it's allowed us to stay on this path together, at an age that as adults, our time, I mean, if we asked you to take us through your day, like what's a typical day look like for you, some people would be blown away with the amount of stuff that you've got going on any given day. And imagine trying to spend extra time with the people that you care about outside of kind of the nuclear family, right? And so Kyle and I have created this. We didn't set out for this in 2011, but what's really special is that we see each other every week. We talk to each other almost every day. And it's not always just to call and say, "Hey, how are you?" It's to call and say, "Hey, we've got a podcast in 10 minutes. Where are you?" Right? And I was like, "I'm walking to the office. I'm fine. You relax. I'll be there on time." But it's allowed us to follow this same path together, and that's been the really one of the greatest rewards of this whole thing.
When did the idea of the foundation really start to form? Was it immediately? Was it something you thought of, gosh, we do this and think about the lives that we can impact and the people that we can inspire and influence to do their thing, to find their way. When did that come to fruition?
Well, Kyle always gives me credit as a co-founder, and I appreciate that. But it was really Kyle's instant reaction to the first triathlon that we did, which was in St. Anthony's Triathlon in St. Petersburg, Florida. And his instant reaction was, other people need to do this. It was exactly what you saw the video of us playing sports together, but the thing is that it was, the rules were changed. The In the 80s and 90s when Kyle was a kid, you typically would identify the sport as wheelchair baseball. So you would say, here's the thing, wheelchair, and this is what they're doing, baseball. Now it's something that we actually believe in is like it's the person first, right? So Kyle is an Ironman triathlete. He's not a wheelchair triathlete, that's pretty cool. So Kyle got that experience in his first triathlon that he was just like everybody else. He talks about his role in this, but people often forget that for a 125-pound man that sits strapped into a wheelchair for 16 to 18 hours a day, the rigors of an Ironman are incredibly challenging on his body. And so not only does he have to keep me physically and mentally engaged, he's got to push his body to places he didn't know. And when he did that in that first race, he was like, this is it. And we were very fortunate that it didn't take us long after, I think about 6 months, and we had a foundation rocking and rolling, ready to serve. So pretty cool.
That's really cool. Very amazing. And Kyle, what is it like? As Brent just mentioned, you sit in your chair 16 hours a day, 16 to 18 hours a day, but then you go do this, the rough ride, right? And all the things that you do in the Ironman to become this Ironman athlete. What is that like on you? What's the toll it takes on you physically and the challenges mentally?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like you got hit by an 18 wheeler times three. So yeah, it takes a while for me to recover. And mentally, it's exhausting to stay positive and trying to help somebody that you care and somebody that you love. Um, keep them focused and keep them engaged. So, I can see how people can say, well, he gets along for the ride, but it's more than that. It's study the course before we go on the course. You know, navigating it in my mind and I'm driving the course before we actually do it. So I'm a student of the game and I love that part of it. The racing is stressful, but it's also fun. The process to get to the race is that's the part that I love.
I love that student of the game. Now, let's talk about that. How you take that mentality, right? That mindset and those beliefs into the Kyle Pease Foundation. Okay. What are the things and what's the mission and what are the things that you do to help so many other individuals that are dealing with pieces of adversity and struggles physically?
So the mission of the Kyle Peace Foundation is to improve the lives of people with disabilities through sports and beyond. And we just want to foster inclusion so that everybody can be involved, everybody can be the athlete, and they can either race for competition or they can race for the medal and the food afterwards. So wherever our athletes are, that's where we want to meet them. And we want to initiate a family. And I think that what we set out to do is racing and what we still do is racing, but we have built a community through the Kyle Beach Foundation, and that's probably the best thing that has come out of what we started together.
Can you talk about, and neither one of you can take this question, talk about some of the amazing work that you've done with the foundation, right? And then once we talk about that, I would love to jump into some of the incredible relationships that you've built over the years with other folks and other families.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as Kyle said, like the core of what we do is racing, and that's about creating inclusive experiences for people with disabilities. And so, some of the incredible things that we've been witness to. I mean, I'll think of two right now. Um, is I was actually looking at the picture. It was the first guy that ever did a triathlon with us named Curtis Ward. And Curtis had never been on a bicycle. And all of our bikes are built with people sitting on front, where they get to experience the thrill of riding a bike and being a cyclist. And he's got this huge screaming face, right? And this is one of the most reserved kids that I always default to kids. Curtis is almost 40 years old, but it's countless finish lines like that where people are realizing what they can't do rather than what they can't. I mean, this is the people that are Kyle's age grew up being defined by their disability. Everything they did, it was an inclusive classroom. It was like, wait a second, I have to be in a special ed room, then I get to go and be included. Why not just include me, right? I get to play baseball, but I have to do it in the way the wheelchair athletes do. Why not do what everybody else does? The other one that I always think about is another triathlon, which is Justin Knight. We call him J-Dude around here. And J-Dude did an Ironman in 2015. And upon finishing that race, he told us that he wanted a job. And it was eye-opening to us because Kyle grew up in an inclusive environment in a house, and he grew up with two brothers that included him. And Kyle's had a job since he was 15 years old, working at Publix grocery stores, and it just felt normal to us, but we didn't notice that a lot of the people coming through the foundation that were doing 5Ks and 10Ks and the sporting experiences that we provided, they were getting the same stuff we got. Reading your bio, if we were to flip the interview to you and hear about what sports created, how you've used it to create success in your life, we get so much from it, the teamwork, the camaraderie, and the experience, but the confidence of working hard towards a goal and what that creates for you, the success, it spills into other areas of our lives. Find me an athlete that doesn't have, tenacity, and I'd love to figure out why, right? And so Justin telling us he wanted a job was because of all of those experiences that he had been having with us for about 3 years at that point. And Justin now helped us create what is our inclusive employment program. We now have 9 individuals with disabilities that work for the foundation that are doing meaningful work around here. Kyle's their boss. He runs a tight ship, but Kyle wanted them to work, not to just say, "Hey, Kyle has a job here. What's his job?" "Well, he stuffs envelopes once a week for us." No, these people are calling donors and volunteers and organizing events, being race directors and interfacing with our donors. And so it's really incredible what a simple question could create for 150 families a year.
And just to piggyback off of that, Jesse was in the office this weekend, and Jesse processes over 5,000 tax returns a year. And so Jesse does a lot of work behind the scenes. But I told him, I said, Jay, like, your job is so valuable here. Like, you complete the deal. When we talk to the donors or director of development, for that relationship, and then me and Brett go and talk to them, and then they donate, and then you kind of close the loop on it. Just because you're not interfacing with them, your job is just as important as any of our jobs is. So that's the role that I play with the inclusive employees to build them up and to to let them know that they are very important and they are valued.
And they must just light up when you say those things to them, right? When you reemphasize their value and reemphasize that the work they do is so meaningful and is having such an impact. What's the response you usually get from them?
Can I have a new boss? I don't like working full time.
I
No,
was
you're
I was going to
exactly
ask a better question to tee that up for you.
No, they had that moment where it's like,
they need the moment where it clicks,
yeah,
and Kyle's trying to help them see that. So Justin came in the office the other day struggling a little bit, and Kyle was trying to help connect with him to show him where it is. And usually where it really clicks is at the finishes, at the races, because
Mhm.
that's where it all comes together. The chairs that we're using have been paid for through the generosity of our donors. The
Yeah.
the volunteers that are pushing the chairs, or pumping tires and doing all the things that bring it together. That's when you realize that it's all worth it, right? Like when you're in the throes of an Ironman for 14 or 15 hours of racing for us, there's moments where just you can't even fathom what the finish is. And when you get to the finish, you realize that it was all those moments that you struggled through that really made it all worth it. So it's like, Justin, you have a hard job because we're not just letting you stuff envelopes for us. We're making you interface with donors to the tune of, 5,000 individual interactions a year. Know that that's important and that makes a difference. And he's like, that's the thing. That's why so many things get labels now, but that's why with what we do, the person first language actually really makes a difference, because you're focusing on the individual, not the other. Like, we would never look at me and say, oh, Brent, the athlete Brent, or the Ironman guy Brent. Like, you don't do that. This is Brent. He does blah, 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 blah. It's like, this is Justin. He works for the Kyle Pease Foundation and he races 20 times a year. So that connection moment happens, and Kyle works really hard to help create that for them.
That's that's awesome. And when you do that and you see them grow, Kyle, and you have to push them outside their comfort zone. That's the thing that absolutely amazes me about what you folks do, right? And when I say you, I mean everybody, because it isn't easy. And what Brent and you do physically, mentally, and emotionally in the races on a day-to-day basis. Was it shocking to you when you started to push because you're outside your comfort zone every day, Kyle? I mean, it's every day is an adventure. Like it's a new challenge, new circumstance, and to do that for others and to push yourself like that. What was that like? Like, what was it like going through the first race? What was it like sitting there? Was it harder than you thought it would be? Was it about what you thought?
uh, no, it was definitely harder than I thought it would be. I thought that you would just show up and you would do the race, but it's the preparation, it's the nutrition, it's making sure that you're good to your body before the event and all that. So
Mhm.
I didn't know how hard it was gonna be, but now I appreciate everything that Brett does to make sure that we are as successful as we can for a race.
That's awesome. Brent, what has this done for you in terms of your physical, mental, and emotional capacity, and not just for yourself, but to continue to impact others?
I don't think it's done anything but bring positivity to all of that. I mean, Iron Man is a day that is fraught with adversity. Kyle's life is a series of moments and days and months and years of adversity. And all of us deal with that at some level. And I think about, I'm going to paraphrase the quote very quickly here, but I think about a quote that, basically says, all my life, I tried to avoid the struggles until I finally realized the struggles were my life. And that's what this has done for me, is it's allowed me to understand that the things that I do experience, and there's positive too, right?
No.
The finish line is a positive. All of those things bring more positivity into my world, and it translates into more success for people here at the foundation, the individuals that we serve, the patients, to help them navigate the challenges that are in front of them. Patients as a parent, as a friend, as a spouse. It's done nothing but improve my life, and it's probably why I've continued to seek out those experiences, because I've yet to stop learning and growing in very positive ways.
So speaking of learning and growing, you guys get up on the stage and do your keynote. Just
Mhm.
I've heard and read so many different things, watched video. It's so moving, and it's moving in a very real way, like a very raw way. What's the feedback that you get shared with you from folks that are fortunate enough to experience one of your keynotes?
It depends on who you have.
No. Yeah,
No.
usually like less Brent, more Kyle. I'm the undercard on the stage with him, but
uh,
I mean, we were just talking about this recently because the speaking stuff for us is something we want to grow and continue to improve. We used to do it for free. We used to do it for $50. We would get reps wherever we could get them, and we grew and it's really evolved from this two brothers sharing a story, which was inspirational and a wonderful thing. We would get bookings that way, but we've tried to move off of the, and then Kyle was born with a disability, and then we finished an Ironman. Please stand up and clap. Into this, what do our struggles and our triumphs represent to you? What can you take from this experience? We want them to come away with action in their own lives because people when they walk out of that room their attention is going to move back to themselves, and that's okay, that's normal. We want when they're working on themselves, when they've moved back into self, is to take something away. So a lot of the feedback that we get, that's exactly where it's focused, is on the what they took from that speech. Like a lot of stuff that you might see is like, wow, what an inspiration, I can't believe what it did for our team, what it did for our individual, right? And so that's what we've really tried to work hard at, is creating real action for everybody in the room.
Yeah, everybody, cannot relate to doing an Ironman, but everybody can relate to perseverance and the tenacity and overcoming obstacles. So we try to make our speakers really life examples for them so that they can take it and do something with it.
I would think in sitting there listening to the two of you tell this amazing story, and I went in there with thinking like my circumstances, my challenges, my adversity, whether it's professional or personal, can be overwhelming. I have this anxiety, and then to sit and listen to your story and to the quote that you just shared, right? And can you say that one more time so we get that again about the life struggles, life?
Just that all my life I tried to avoid the struggles
Yeah.
until I finally realized the struggles were my life.
Yeah, and if the light bulb doesn't go on for someone when that is said or that message is delivered, whichever way it's delivered, then they need to have their heartbeat checked because it's that's it right there, right? And hey, I'm Southside Irish Catholic. You grew up knowing that everybody somewhere someone has something harder for you. That's just the way you live. But I think the fact that when you realize it's okay to own your struggles and to realize you are what you have in terms of the current circumstances and just doing the best with that,
Hmm.
right? And Kyle, how have you navigated, and Brent leaning into this too, how have you navigated when you have someone, right, that you've pulled into the foundation and sometimes they feel like, man, my circumstances aren't as tough as yours, Kyle, or my circumstances aren't as tough as Mary's or something like that. How do you get to them to let them know, hey, you know what? Let's just do the best we can with your situation and make a difference in your own unique, beautiful way.
Yeah, I think that's great because everybody is different. Every circumstance is different. So when I'm talking to an athlete, I always tell them what may work for you may not work for me. So
Mm.
we have to really take a step back and identify what's good for them, and when we find something that's good for them, then we'll stick with it.
Now, this is going to be a tricky question, probably not a very fair one. Over 150 races together, correct?
Hmm.
What are your top two or your favorite
That's a
top
very
three?
easy question.
Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
Boston and Kona.
yeah.
And if you want to know the order, you flip them. Kona, then Boston.
Okay, what was Kona like? I mean, I have heard it's just an absolute nightmare, like
Um,
incredibly rewarding, but there's so many different factors, weather, right?
yeah.
All like, what was that like for you guys?
I'm gonna respond first because I always tell the audience when we speak and all that, it's the most fun that you never want to have again. It to your point, it's very rewarding. it tests it tests you beyond way that you can't even think about.
It's the, I read your bio, right? And like Augusta National is the Masters is kind of the general comp because of the mystique of the island and the energy of the island and the history of the race, started by a bunch of Navy SEALs arguing over who was the fittest people on the island. And so working to this championship mentality, working hard, like you have to go through so much just for this one small moment to stand at the peak, and then it's over. The conditions on the island are what make it so difficult. The Kyle and I have raced other Ironmans that are harder. The course, nothing that is as hard as the race in Hawaii. Nothing's challenged us like Hawaii has, because you have the heat and the humidity and the wind, and you're in the ocean, and it's the intensity. Everybody there is a championship caliber athlete. I mean, we've done, an Ironman in Panama City, for example, where we beat hundreds of people. This is not a race. Like by mile 90 on the bike last October, I think we were by ourselves for almost 20 miles because we had been passed by thousands of competitors. So it's just the island throws so much at you, but the island gives so much to you. It's one of the most magical places that I've ever experienced because of what Kyle and I went through to get there to those moments. So I don't know that I've had a more difficult race experience and a more rewarding one.
You know, just perusing your website, you got a quote on here where it says self-awareness is a competitive advantage. And I think that me and Brett are so aware of what we're doing as an individual and as a team that that is one of our competitive advantages, and that we have each other to get through the good times and the bad times. And when it get rough, that's when we rely on each other, and that's what makes Kona so beautiful, is that we have one another.
That's awesome. Now, first of all, you guys, kudos to you because not many guests come prepared in terms of looking at the website and getting background on us and myself. So I appreciate that. It's awesome. And the self-awareness as a competitive advantage piece is so profound and has been so profound in my life, which leads me to this is like sometimes you're not really sure how much more you have in you, right? Like just
Hmm.
even in the day-to-day, sometimes we just don't know. Like we're at a breaking point. But you have that awareness that we really don't know our potential. It's always going to remain very, lightly tapped. Were there any times during the race in Kona where there was doubt that crept in your mind or that discretionary thinking wasn't going as well? Was it you, Brent, firing up Kyle? Kyle, was it you firing up Brent? Was it you supporting each other? Like, what was that like in the moment?
So we've done Hawaii twice.
Okay.
And one of my favorite stories to share was from 2018, where we started the run without padding that Kyle needed, without the awareness that I was underfueled from a hydration standpoint mostly. And within a mile, I was hobbled with what's known as the runner's trot. Kind of a gut bomb had gone off, and I was barely moving. I was in and out of porta potties, and Kyle looked at me and he said, "Okay, can you run to that traffic cone?" And I looked, and 5 feet away was an orange traffic cone. And I said, "Okay, I can do that." And so I kind of waddled over to that cone. He said, "Good job, go to the next one." And for 7 miles, that's what we did, right? And the whole time, this is when, for your listeners and for you, when you're like, well, what is Kyle really doing? Like he's no. I turned my mind off and just focused on what Kyle, because Kyle at this point, this was his fourth Ironman. He knew what was going on both with his body and mine. And he knew that mentally I couldn't wrap my head around the idea of running 25.2 miles. Like you said, like you don't know, like all that self-doubt has crept in, and I'm thinking we're not going to finish, right? And so I'm barely moving, but he's got me moving 5 feet at a time. And to think about how hard that must have been for me physically, pushing 125 pounds, 140 pounds with the chair and Kyle,
Yeah.
right? How grueling that must have been while my body's exploding inside. And then to think about Kyle, who's missing a pad, who feels like crap from racing for over 10 hours, to think about how mentally excruciating that must have been for him, because that 7 miles took us over an hour. We were not
Wow.
moving at what would be we weren't even moving at an average pace, right? The other thing that happened, I want to extend it a little bit further. Usually that's where we kind of stop and let the audience soak that up and
Yeah.
try to connect the dots with themselves. But the other piece to better answer your question is for Kyle, that in our fourth Ironman, I'd never once heard self-doubt creep into Kyle's voice. It may have crept into his head,
Right.
but never in his voice. And around mile 16, in a place known as the Natural Energy Lab, it started raining, and Kyle said, "I don't feel good," and it rocked me, right? Like, whoa, wait a second! Like you just dragged me for 7 miles. Like we're 10 miles away. What do you mean you don't feel like you never expressed that? And he goes, "Well, I need something," and I stopped. I stopped moving, and I said, "Kyle, we got to figure this out." He said, "Well, can I have some chicken broth?" And we went to the next aid station. They had chicken broth, but all Kyle needed was the comfort of knowing that I would support him, right? And it took him 4 Ironmans to learn that everybody thinks of Kyle as superhuman when they hear some of these stories. And quite frankly, he is until you realize that he's just also human and that was he finally had the confidence to say, hey, I'm not going to just sit here and suffer in silence and support you. I'm going to give you the opportunity to carry me too, brother. And I fed him chicken broth, and the next 10 miles we floated. We ran, we laughed, we hugged, and finished our first Ironman in Hawaii. So self-doubt is very real and it's very normal. We've just had to work really hard over the last 150 races to learn how to get our hands on the wheel of you know self actualization, of realization of what we're actually doing, accomplishing together.
I mean, it's a hell of a story. And I got to ask Kyle, that was some good chicken broth, huh? Huh? That was some damn good
Yeah,
chicken
it
broth.
was the
Yeah.
best chicken broth. Yeah.
Huh? Yeah. Did it hit you right away? It felt better. See, I've never done the chicken broth trick. People have told me about it. I haven't done it though.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. Within the first couple of sips, I could feel a difference right away.
Next time you're
Yeah.
in the grocery store, grab a can of like general, Campbell's chicken broth and look at how much
Yeah.
sodium's in it.
Yeah.
And you'll know why it's a good trick.
Was that the last chicken broth you needed that day? Or did you grab some more later
No,
Oh
on?
no, we did a lot more.
Yeah.
you know, I'm,
Yeah.
Did we do
What was it
chicken
like?
broth last year in
no,
October? We
no,
didn't. Interesting. I didn't remember.
no.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. What was Boston like for you guys? I mean, that's first of all, Boston. I mean, in both Kona and Boston and so many others, the hills had to just be crazy.
The hills were brutal. Both we've done Boston twice and Kona twice, and the hills I still haven't mastered them, and nor has Kyle. But we did Boston both times after the bombing, and it's already a prestigious race. It already has maybe that has a Final Four feel to it. The energy it takes to get to that moment. But when you get to that finish line and you see that memorial for some of the bombing victims, and you feel the energy of the crowd, which is sometimes 6, 8 people deep, and it's so loud. I mean, it's hair raising. You can't help but just feel the energy of everybody else. It's probably, I would say, the one racing experience where it's not just Kyle lifting the team, that it's all the people around us. Because there's a picture of us, we can send it for the show notes if you want, from 2021, our first Boston, where I was so happy coming to the finish, and Kyle was so happy. I took his hat off and tipped Kyle's hat to the crowd, and you can see Kyle's reaction and you can see these like 6 or 8 people in the
Oh,
background and their reaction, and like that's Boston. That
please send
picture is
that.
Boston in a nutshell. It's the energy of
Yeah.
the community that lifts that event up.
Yeah.
I mean, they shut down the city. Every Boston police officer had to work that day. The Red Sox are playing at 11:30 in the morning. Like, it gets everything shut down and every community comes out from the choices for 2 miles. It's truly amazing.
Yeah. I mean, in the second time, well, let me correlate the second time doing Boston, second time doing Kona, the whole experience. I got to think it never gets old. Like
Not
there's
yet.
always something new, right?
Yeah, something new to struggle with, something new to be excited about. I mean, like Kona, the finish line in 2018, our coach saw us as we were entering the chute, and he said, "You boys," he said, "that was amazing. what a special experience. Make sure to enjoy this. And we both felt like we enjoyed it until we went back in 2024 and
Huh.
really took a second to like stop and look
Yeah.
around and see the extra people there for us
Yeah.
that were part of our experience. And in Boston to notice the places we had struggled, or even, I mean, I had full cramps from the waist down at mile 21 or so, the second round in Boston. And I'm listening to Kyle and I'm looking at the people screaming, and I didn't see that the first time. So your eyes start to get a little bit more clearly
Yeah.
focused on the
Yeah.
other. Like you said, there's always something different to experience. And what a gift and what a blessing to be able to go back and do that again, anyways. Not many people in life get to go do that thing over and over again.
So is Boston or Kona in the cards for the next few years? Are those happening again, Kyle? What do we got here?
That door is not fully closed, but it's not fully open.
Okay. All right.
We did Kona in Boston in 6 months this year, and it
Okay.
was a tremendous lift for both of us. Like I said before we started, this is the first time in nearly
Yeah.
13 years that we haven't had a race that's like we're doing this thing right next. But we both, like we said, we're on this path together. We're on this journey together, and so I know that Boston this past April was not our last experience together. You just don't know what the next one is yet, and I'm okay with that.
We did qualify for Boston next year, so that is definitely on the radar again.
There you go. News to me.
There it is. You heard it here first, folks. Unbelievable. Even Brent heard it here first.
But yeah,
Huh?
we have talked about Ironman in the future. I don't know what that looks like, but whatever it is, we'll be at it together. So
That's great.
that's the most important thing.
Yeah, that is, and that's pretty awesome. So let's talk about we're talking about heavy lifts. Well, let me go back for a second. Speaking of, you said the door is not, it's not fully open, it's not fully closed. Now, Kyle, I've seen this really cool apartment that you have where you can open the doors with Google, right? How awesome is that?
It's the best. It truly is the best. Now I can come and go as I please, and
Yep.
you know, a simple opening the door, it gets me going every morning. So
Mhm.
it's,
That's awesome.
it's awesome. Yes.
So we're gonna kick this door open too, Kyle. We're gonna get you back out to Kona, man. Yeah, Brent's looking at me like, can you? Hey, hold on a second. There's
So
yeah,
when we get off, I'd love to just share a story because you
yeah,
shared about Catholic upbringing.
yeah.
There was somebody told me about this place called the Blue Surfer Church, and it is this little blue church, part of a Catholic church that is on the water. And they said you should really go there before Hawaii.
Uh,
And so this was in October of last year. And so everybody that was on the island with us, about 30 or 40 people, we invited them all, and we did a just kind of a grounding ceremony, non-denominational, to just let everybody connect with the island how they wanted to. And it
yeah.
was really powerful and really special. And it helped, I hope and I believe that it really helped our group see why this is such a special place for us and what it really means to the foundation. There was a lot of tears, there was a lot of hugging, and there was just a lot of really real connection between everybody. And when you say like, hey, let's get you back to Hawaii, that's what I think about is the energy of the island, not the challenges of the race, right? Because those challenges are the race. That is our life. But there was something that helped connect us to that first. And it was just this little blue building sitting right on the water.
That's amazing. That's a phenomenal story. How did so you knew about that before you went over there? Somebody shared that with you.
Yeah.
So what were with the 30 or 40 folks that were there with you? What was their experience like? What did they share with you that they walked away like this was so amazing because, right? Or you guys are unreal because like what was that like?
They probably loved it more. I know that they loved it more than we did.
Yeah.
I would say that my dad in particular, our dad in particular, has been at every big race, and he always says he's basking in the afterglow. And I never knew what that really meant until Kona. That he will take the memory that he saw and he'll take it for the rest of his lifetime. And so that was a really cool moment for me to see it through he thought that he will never get to experience something like that again, or unless we get to do it again. So that was really cool for him to illustrate that.
That's awesome. Now, Brent, where can the listeners learn more about the foundation? Where can they learn more about you guys? Let's point them in the direction. And where can we find the book? Yeah, I need to grab a copy of the book. It looks phenomenal. The chapters, summaries that I read, and then the videos that I watched. Stories are so important, and the emotional
Mm-hmm.
attachment to the things that we're doing in life are so important. And family, community, Kyle, to your point, right? This amazing community that you have built is so important. So, where if the listeners sitting there like, I want to become part of this community, I want to get my brother, my sister, my aunt, my uncle involved in this community, where can they find out about it?
So everything is right there at kylepeasefoundation.org. So you can connect through our newsletter, through social. You can purchase the book there. Of course, if you're an Amazon shopper, you can get the book there as well. Although I hear if you order through our website, you'll get Kyle's signature on there.
That's it.
Um,
Website done.
yep, that's all you need.
Yep. Kyle, I want your autographed book, so I'm going to order it through the website, my
We're going to
friend.
send you one. Don't worry about that. So,
Okay. All right. And if we'll put everything in the show notes. So everything that Brent's sharing right now, we will put in the show notes on the website. They can make donations directly through the website as well and
correct.
find out
Yep.
more. Perfect. Perfect. So what is some of the great work that you have going on with the foundation? Are there some new things that you're working on? Is there something you're doubling down on? Like what's happening?
The employment piece has become new, and Justin, as we mentioned, opened that up. So we've really started to double down on that of creating inclusion in the workforce. So that's really exciting that that's happening. The Kona experience, very quickly, I'll say, helped create ways to support them beyond the employment. That's putting more money in the hands of our employees legally. For any lawyers listening, we did it right. And then just really leaning into what we're good at. I mean, we are good at sports. This organization is good at executing inclusion through sports, and so we do 40 plus events a year, and we're still very excited to not lose sight of what has helped us create the place we are today.
So my last question is for you, Kyle, and I want you to give some advice along these lines. One of the things I talk with all the leaders that we work with, our high impact coaching leaders we work with, we often think about in leadership the sacrifices we have to make. And what I lean into is this: the resilience comes from our ability to develop endurance and the things that we're willing to endure, right, over time. What is some good advice from you in terms of folks getting outside their comfort zone, pushing themselves mentally and physically and emotionally, and developing that endurance that is necessary?
My advice is pretty simple. It's not rocket science at all, but just get yourself out there. If you want to do a 5K, go out there. Just don't knock it. Try it. Like, try it before you, what's that thing? Don't knock it. Just,
I'm not gonna tell you try it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Try it first. And if it works for you, go for it. If it doesn't, find something else that you're passionate about. No, that's what I really, try to convey to our team because try it. If it works, go for it. If it doesn't, find something else that you love.
When you think about the next 5 feet for Kyle, you don't know the power of what those next steps will
Yeah.
do. And if Kyle didn't encourage me to take 5 more steps, we wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today about finishing the Ironman in Hawaii. So, as Kyle said, don't knock it till you try it. Just do the thing and go 5 feet and see what the next 5 feet look like.
The cards that we were dealt are not ideal, but you gotta play like a winner every day. And I think that's what the power of our friendship, the power of our brotherhood does is the cards that we were dealt are not ideal, but every day we try to play like a winner.
Guys, I can't thank you enough. This has been phenomenal. I
Yeah,
want to
thank
have
you.
you, I want to have you back on here, let's say 6, 12 months, if we can get an update
Yeah.
on what's next, what's going on. And please do not hesitate. Any way we
Okay.
can help you here, we would love to be a part of what you're doing and be of service. You guys are two amazing, amazing people.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity. Please feel free to stay in touch yourself and push us. Kyle and I always get so many offers, and sometimes we're not as good at figuring out what that ask is of what we need. So would love and be honored to come back on. That'll maybe help that conversation continue.
Awesome.